Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We'll just wait. Hello, Cass. You're very welcome.
Very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're honoured to have you with us. We'll just wait a little bit longer for a few more people to join before we kick off.
Okay, I'm gonna send my dogs into their little place, and I'll be right back.
Super.
That was nice, Louise. For a moment, I started stressing out because I wasn't sure if Cass had registered late. And so I was stressing out because Brenda is on leave.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that was another part of it. And I just
Yeah,
dropped him a link
she
right
got
now.
him signed in 5 minutes early.
Yeah. And then, so okay. Yeah.
Everyone can breathe a deep. Whew.
Much relieved, yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Let's
Are you
wait.
okay for me to introduce Prakash?
Yes, please. We will go the usual way.
We'll just do the same, exactly the same format. So I'll just introduce, I'll ask him maybe one question and then hand over to you.
Yes, I think it's going to be fair to have almost all the questions coming in from all the members who will join in today. I
I agree. So maybe I'll hand straight to you to ask him one warm-up question. I won't ask a question myself.
Yes, that's how we do it. And then the thing about for people who have joined today, the session today, if I understand correctly, Cass is with us for around 30 minutes, busy schedule.
Yeah.
Again, it's a Friday instead of a usual Saturday. So we will make the best of it, and Cash is here already. Louise, all yours.
Okay, Cass, we'll just wait 3 more minutes until it turns 4, if you don't mind,
That's
to
great.
have maximum number of our members to have joined us.
And would you like me to speak? For how long should I speak?
Our usual format, Cass, is I'll do a very short introduction, but then we are absolutely in your hands. So
Okay, so I'll speak maybe for 15 minutes or so, and then we can take questions.
fantastic. That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll just wait another couple of minutes until it turns 4, and we'll start promptly at 4 o'clock.
Great.
So you're all very welcome to Behavioural Science Club as usual. We're going to wait until 4 to stop. Cass is with us and we've had a little chat. We're going to wait just 1 more minute until it kicks over onto 4 o'clock. My Wi-Fi has been very patchy today, but I've now got an Ethernet cable, so I'm more confident that I'm going to be speaking and still here for the next at least half an hour. So it's just turning 4. You're all joining us. And you are all very welcome again from all over the world, our loyal members joining us. Today we have the pleasure of having Cass Sunstein speak to us. Nudge is the book that arguably kicked behavioural economics out of the academic field and into the mainstream. It's packed full of fascinating case studies into how we can learn to better influence ourselves and others when it comes to a wide variety of subjects: health, wealth, happiness. Cass Sunstein is a legal scholar and a professor at Harvard, and it's fair to say it was a groundbreaking book introducing new terminology, econ's choice architect, amongst other terms. We are very honoured to have Cass Sunstein here today. I'm going to hand over just for a quick minute to my co-host, Prakash, and then we will turn straight to Cass.
Thank you so much, Louise. Thanks all for joining in. we'll follow our usual rules. And thanks for joining on a Friday. This is not a usual time for us. And usual rules are we be on mute. We put our videos on. We go on to a gallery view so that we can see each other. We share our questions on the chat box so that Cass can pick up the ones that he likes. But to make things easier, Louise is going to keep an eye on all the questions. And then she's going to invite us to ask those questions to Cass directly, and then we'll have the answers. Now, with all that said, Cass, welcome to the Behavioral Science Club. A lot of the folks out here are big fans, big fan of your work. And now we know we have 30 minutes, and we know we would love to talk about nudge. We'd love to talk about too much information. And we know you're working on a new project. This is not normal. If I got the name right, we would love to talk about that too. But let us not get greedy out here. I invite you to talk to us and take us on the journey with you. Yes, whichever way you prefer. We're all yours.
Great. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to see you all, and it's inspiring to see that you're focused on this. And I thought what I'd do is tell you a little bit about the origins of nudge, then say something about vaccine uptake, and then say something about a little framework that has an acronym. So I should say that I'm now heading up a technical advisory group at the World Health Organization on behavior and public health. And some of what I'm going to say is informed by what I've learned there. Dick Thaler, who's really the most important voice behind behavioral economics as such, and I became close friends and collaborators actually long before nudge. And we worked on the topic of libertarian paternalism. And we did an article with that title, and improbably people were interested. So if you wanted to have something that no one would be interested in, you should call it libertarian paternalism, but people were interested. And as we saw that, we focused a little bit on what the tools of libertarian paternalism might be in terms of reminders or warnings or automatic enrollment or simplification or social norms. And as we talked about over the years, we decided to do a book. And the one thing we were very clear on is that the book would be about libertarian paternalism, and that would be in its title. We went to various publishers, and most weren't really interested because the title was so terrible. And one of the publishers that wasn't interested said, you know what, you should call the book Nudge. And our ears perked up, and we thought, that's a good suggestion. And that basically launched our project. And that's speaking of a number of years ago. Today, the world faces a problem, which is a vaccine. It looks like, or more than one, are going to be on the horizon, and people will have an opportunity to protect themselves and their loved ones against what is potentially a very bad disease. There's an issue of vaccine uptake or vaccine acceptance, and the question is, how can you nudge people to get vaccinated? Okay, here are three ideas that are closely connected actually with the book. The one problem for people who aren't getting vaccinated is summarized in one simple word: convenience. If getting vaccinated is convenient, then the likelihood of vaccination increases very dramatically. And in fact, the data suggests that to make vaccination convenient in the largest sense, meaning easy, local, inexpensive, treating people with dignity and respect, fast, that makes a very large difference. The first weapon for people who are concerned about attacking COVID-19 once a vaccine arrives is that form of nudge which involves social architecture that increases convenience. The second problem is complacency. Among a number of people, whether it involves flu or something else, their sense is my own vulnerability is actually low. I'm healthy now. I can handle the problem. I'll be fine. If people are suffering or in some ways benefiting from complacency, the behavioral response is not involving convenience. It's to explain to people through a nudge that the life they save may be their own, and even if their life they're going to save isn't their own, it's going to save someone about whom they care. It might be their mother, it might be their aunt, it might be a neighbor who actually is highly vulnerable. The nudges with respect to complacency are very different from the nudges with respect to inconvenience, and they involve handling the challenge of unrealistic optimism. The third problem is distrust, sometimes described as a lack of confidence. And here the idea is that many people think that COVID is bad and they don't want to get it, but they think that the vaccine will be worse, that the risks associated with being vaccinated are unpredictable and unknown, that the vaccine may have been rushed out, and therefore they will make a judgment not to get vaccinated. If the problem is distrust, then one way in is to find trusted others, either local people or people who have distinctive credibility within the relevant community, who can respond credibly to people who are mistrustful of the vaccine. And here the basic point is that to appeal to people by drawing attention to those who have a similar kind of identity as theirs, it may be ethnic, it may be religious, it may involve some other demographic characteristic, it may involve someone who's converted in the sense that they were originally distrustful, but they aren't anymore. Okay, this is just to suggest with respect to what may be the largest public health challenge of our lifetime. In some ways, we should hope for that. A potential solution involves distinctive nudges. Now I'm going to broaden the view screen a little bit and to offer a general framework for problems of multiple kinds. It might be highway safety, it might be climate change, it might be poverty, might be discrimination, might be asylum for people who are trying to get asylum in other countries. In England, as you're aware of the UK, there's a framework you probably know about called EAST. And it is a very useful summary of decades of research on nudging and nudges. And the EAST framework, which I'm going to amend in a moment, announces that if you want people to do something different, you should make it easy, attractive, social, and timely. And of these two, the star performers in terms of choice architecture are the E and the S. So Olympic gold goes to easy. If people are automatically enrolled in green energy, a savings plan, double-sided printing, a technology by which they can help monitor their children's progress in school, the evidence suggests participation rates increase on average by 26%. That's a stunning achievement if you can get participation up from 25% to over 50% just by changing to automatic enrollment. If it's not automatic, make it simple. Simplification often pays big dividends, and the data suggests that its cost effectiveness crushes the cost effectiveness of other tools. The S, which is the Olympic silver, suggests that if you draw attention to existing practice, that most doctors aren't prescribing a lot of antibiotics these days, or most taxpayers are paying their taxes. You are in a small group of people who aren't. You can often create a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. If it's a fact and you're telling the truth, then describing the social norm in a certain way can be a significant changer of behavior. There are two kind of frontiers amendments to this idea of S as silver medal. And the first is, if there's an emerging norm, that is often more helpful even than a current norm. If people are increasingly wearing masks or increasingly eating plant-based food, for example, or increasingly engaging in non-discriminatory behavior with respect to X or Y or Z, then you can fuel behavior change even if the norm isn't widespread yet. The other friendly amendment to the S is to say that if the social norm is held locally rather than nationally, then it is more powerful. The A in the East framework says make it attractive. And in New Zealand, with respect to COVID-19, some of the nudges with respect to social distancing and mask wearing are very attractive. They're colorful, they're vivid, they catch the eye, they even induce a smile. The T has to do with timely. And here the basic idea is if you tell people to, learn a lot about financial education over the summer, that might be about as good as telling them to go to Mars, meaning they won't do it, or if they do it, it won't help. But if you give them information about financial planning, for example, on the day that they're making relevant choices, or if you tell people as they're entering the grocery store, do social distancing rather than the night before, that can be massively effective. I promised you an amendment to the East framework, and here goes. The secret ingredient of behavior change, whose power is just now being revealed, is the F in what I'm here to announce is the FEAST framework, where the F means fun. Human beings need it. If you can get behavior change, whether it's exercise or diet or even a response to COVID-19, to have a smile and a laugh, that can be like a rocket ship. In New Zealand, the Prime Minister has done that, saying, we're going to have a lockdown, but the Easter Bunny has an exemption. And I'm thinking about doing the same for the Tooth Fairy. If you tell people that eating certain kinds of foods is healthy, you get a significant increase in consumption. But if you tell them that eating those foods is delicious, the increase is greater. Pepsi has marketed with some success Diet Pepsi in various countries, but in the same countries in Europe, sometimes Pepsi Max has done much better. The reason is not that Pepsi Max tastes much better than Diet Pepsi. It's that with Diet Pepsi, you think, I'm dieting, and it tastes pretty good. With Pepsi Max, you think, max, maximum, great, and also I'm dieting. In multiple domains, whether the issue involves safety, health, money, treating people with decency, we need a lot of Pepsi Max. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cass. That was power-packed. And there are a lot of questions already out there for people. And I'm not sure if we can take up a question around the current political scenario in the US, given your stature as the topmost legal expert out there, one of the best legal expert out there. If you would like to be, if you're kind, can you at least just touch upon it very briefly? People are stressed. What do you think is going to happen? Is it affecting the way democratic norms are going to be, seen here onwards? What happens? And then we take up questions.
In the United States, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm extremely optimistic for our country. We have a president-elect, Joe Biden, I worked with him closely over the years. I know him very well. He's great. Everybody likes him. Even people who don't like him, meaning you may disagree with him, but he's just a great person. His team is very expert on the issues we're discussing. So behavioral science is something that people on the Biden group know about. There are people all over the federal government in the United States who are experts in this, in our Department of Transportation, in our Environmental Protection Agency. The fact that many of these tools are inexpensive makes them appealing to Republicans as well as Democrats. So both for our nation in the large and for particular problems like COVID-19, climate change, economic distress, we have real opportunities coming for good change.
Thank you, Cass. I only see a comment from Harry saying, I despise Trump, but he understands behavioral science much better than almost everybody else. There seems to be an element of truth out there. Do you think he is very good at understanding the human psyche and telling people exactly what they want to hear?
Well, I should say that I worked in the White House for 4 years with President Obama, and there are numerous policies that are informed by behavioral science. So children in the United States who are poor are entitled to school meals that are free. And we created a program by which they are automatically enrolled in the program. They don't have to sign up. And as a result, 15 million children approximately who are poor are automatically receiving school meals for free. And that's an Obama administration policy, which the Trump administration has continued. Whenever you buy an automobile or a truck in the United States, there's a fuel economy label, which is informed by behavioral science and behavioral economics, so that you get a sense of the economic and environmental savings. That's having an impact in encouraging people to save money for themselves and also to do something a bit better for the environment. There's a program called the TSA pre-program global entry, which at last count over 5 million people were enrolled in. There aren't a lot of people traveling these days, flying these days, but it's a program that's behaviorally informed for simplification of entry and exit into the United States. For helping people manage debt, there's a law, I could go on for approximately 18 hours, listing Obama administration policies that are informed by behavioral science. And President Trump has continued most of them. They haven't been reassessed or eliminated. In terms of his communications, he does show on occasion an intuitive understanding of behavioral science. He appeals to social norms and he knows something about loss aversion, but I wouldn't say that he's understands behavioral science. He's a person who has a kind of shrewdness and intuitive understanding of rhetoric, but he and his team are not behavioral experts. In India, there's a team of people who are experts who are working on multiple problems, and we can see that in Australia and New Zealand as well. There are superb people in the United Kingdom. There are some excellent people in France and Germany working on these issues, in Canada. The Trump administration, whether you're enthusiastic or not, it's not one of the world's leaders with respect to behavioral science. Though to its credit, some of the policies that are behaviorally informed are very much in effect.
Thank you
so much.
Cass. Louise, all yours.
Thank you so much, Cass. Just marvellous to hear you speaking on such a wide range of subjects, and the questions are flowing in. A lot of them are quite environmentally based, and I wanted to particularly draw in the parallels of the postscript at the end of Nudge, Cass, that at that time you commented that America had just elected Barack Obama and the world is facing the greatest financial crisis since the Great Depression. Just sort of reflecting on those words now and our current situation and the importance that people put on the environment and how that's impacted today. Could you maybe comment on that?
Yes. So the environment, we might often people mean climate change. Sometimes they mean clean air generally. Let's focus on climate change, shall we? The fact is that there are public and private institutions all over the world that are using a large variety of tools to respond to greenhouse gas emissions. Sometimes they take the form of regulatory mandates, as in a requirement that clean power plants meet certain emissions limits. And that's something the Obama administration did, and the coming Biden administration promises to do. It's something that we've seen all over the world. There are, in some nations, taxes, uh, uh, carbon taxes. In Germany, Chancellor Merkel, for example, has inaugurated a carbon tax. And as a policy prescription, that's something Nudge is very enthusiastic about. A tax is not a nudge, but it is a part of the toolbox. And in the context of climate change, nudges aren't enough. In Germany as well, and this is fantastic data, many companies automatically enroll people in green energy, which is an instrument for reducing environmental harms of multiple kinds. But people can opt out if they want a dirtier source of energy. And the data suggests all over Germany, automatic enrollment, which is a nudge, is working among diverse demographic groups in diverse regions. If people are automatically green, they are reluctant to say, actually, I want to be dirtier. And that's having a quite significant impact on environmental indicators of multiple kinds in Germany. Information disclosure, invocations of social norms, these are things that are having an impact on the private sector. So one company I've had some discussions with is Porsche, which is doing multiple things that are in the domain of sustainability and the environment, which range from the increased marketing of electric vehicles to efforts to engage consumers in ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the magnitude of the climate change problem is such that anything any one company or one person does seems really vanishingly small. But aggregated, the individual acts of even millions of people can have a real effect in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And that's the only way we're going to make progress on the problem.
Thank you.
That's related to the nice question about nudging for good in the private sector. And I'll give you an example of the deployment of the F in the FEAST framework. Amazon, a huge private sector entity, has a form of packaging called frustration-free packaging. And what this means is you open your package and there's the product. You don't have to do anything. It's frustration-free. It's right there. And I buy electric razors. This may be a little more information than you need, but if for those of us who rely on electric razors, to buy them is to be subject to a period of torture as you try to extricate it from the package, which has plastic and wires and paper, and it's terrible. Frustration-free packaging means you just take the razor out and there it is. It's fun. F. It's easy. E. It's attractive. A. I looked up what frustration-free packaging is about. It's about the environment and sustainability. No plastic. Everything's recyclable. Less solid waste. It's all environmental, but they are nudging. They are using the F in the FEAST framework and the E. They're not saying green packaging. They're saying frustration-free packaging. Both the product is a nudge and so's the definition.
Thank you. The importance of having the right package of tools. And you said in particular that sometimes nudges aren't enough. One of the questions was about whether nudges are sustainable. And that's as talking about the toolbox. I saw a comment recently, Cass, that you'd made, which you thought was an important finding. It was, I don't know if you'll remember, but it was about messages sent at school. And it was information versus salience. So I suppose the thing I'm really asking is, it's not only to be aware of the tools, but it's understanding which is the right approach to use.
Yes. So in terms of what lasts, default rules really persist. So if you automatically enroll someone in a savings program, the data suggests that they're likely to stay in for a really long time. Of university professors, the initial selection they take with respect to their pension plan, it lasts for decades typically. So default rules are typically very, very persistent. If you give people a graphic warning for something, there's some data suggesting that in some contexts, it will have an immediate impact on their behavior, but over time people get used to it. And let's say it's a graphic warning involving distracted driving or involving cigarette usage, it becomes background noise or furniture after a while. So whether the nudge will last depends on what the nudge is. And we're getting more and more data about that. The paper that's very cool, and it fits with a lot of our intuitions. If you provide people with information about something, it could be about something relating to the environment or relating to health or relating to possible economic savings. If people change, is that they learn something they didn't know, or because you draw to their attention and make salient something on which they didn't focus. And the paper is compatible with the second hypothesis, which is information provision may be important in changing behavior often because it focuses people on something to which they didn't attend. That fits with some of the most exciting theoretical work in behavioral science connected with the question, what are some questions that are intriguing but unanswered, which is, is there a general framework here for thinking about all these separate things? And if there is, the best candidate is human attention, which is a scarce resource. And it can be triggered by telling people, you buy this car, you're going to save money on gasoline. Or you get this credit card and they're going to remind you if you are at risk of incurring a late fee. That triggers attention.
Thank you so much. And if you're okay to take one more question, I'm quite aware of the time here. And you've been very good at noting the questions as they came through. I was just going to actually ask that one that you saw yourself. So maybe we'll just generally ask, Lashiza there is talking, could you recommend one book that best describes the human condition? But maybe you'd widen that and maybe recommend a few books that you think would be recommended reading.
The best book describing the human condition is called Possession by A.S. Byatt. And it isn't a behavioral science book, but boy, is it a behavioral science book. It's a novel, and it's great, and it's all about human nature. The best behavioral science book on the human condition is a nice competition between Scarcity by Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir, which is connected with our attention point. This book, Scarcity, is quite great. And of course, Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. Those would be my two choices.
Thank you so much. And just to wrap up there, Cass, I'm delighted that you mentioned there the Byatt book, because I know that is your favourite. And just to lighten the mood a little before we close up, I know that also you have a great favourite in a film series, which is Star Wars. So maybe just to close the meeting, you'd tell our members what it is about that film that you're so attracted to.
Well, it has a kind of joy and delight and effervescence. And George Lucas, the author of the series, the principal ones, observed, if I have anything to say about the Star Wars movie, it has a kind of effervescent joy in it. And he said, that's very strange because I'm not at all like that as a person, he said, the author. But it also tells us something about freedom and choice and redemption. So if we find ourselves in a terrible situation, we always have more than one option. That's one of its biggest lessons. And the other lesson, which I find very moving, is that all of us can be redeemed in some sense. You can think of that in theological terms or not, your choice. But if the worst person in the history of the galaxy, Darth Vader, can at the last moment decide to abandon all of the evil doing of his life and save his own son and destroy his only friend, really, and boss, the emperor, because he loves his kid, if he can do that, well, there are a few things we can do too.
I think that's a lovely note to close on. We had the honor of you reciting poetry at Prakash's Now Fest, the Thomas Gray poem, and to close on such a lovely theme is an honor. Thank you so much, Cass Sunstein, and all of our members. You're welcome to stay behind after Cass leaves us, and I'll just hand over now to Prakash to say thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Cass. I don't really know what else to say. It's always fantastic when you're here. And you've been very kind. And we know you got a busy schedule. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A great pleasure. Thanks to everybody. Inspiring to get to talk to you.
Dear all, we still have another half an hour more to go. You can stay back. It's a lovely group of people that we hear, and Louise had some plan. Did you, Louise?
I am usually so cool coming into these events, and it's always such a nice warm environment. You see everybody's faces, and I'm just like, fine, we'll just ask everything. And I just was so nervous coming in today, and I just, when you're whatever the flipping system 1 and 2, I was just like, I couldn't think straight at all. But I'm just delighted that so many people joined us today. And I also just wanted to say to all of you that I've been reaching out to a lot of the members who don't join us so often at the events, particularly members in like Africa and Asia, in terms of the time that we join each other. And I've just had some really positive feedback from so many people who read the messages, who read all of your comments, who in a way we don't know that they're following the group in the background. So if any of you guys are the ones I was reaching out to this week, I really want to say thank you for answering all of my messages, because it was truly uplifting just to know that out of the huge number of members that we have, obviously only a limited number can join us in the events, but to know that they're there sort of reading the messages and using all of our suggestions or reading one of the books has been really uplifting this week.
Well, guys, before we go, a couple of updates. The first update is we have got 2 more authors lined up in the next 2 weeks, 2 more books. Again, fantastic authors out there, lovely book. In fact, we're going to talk about neuromarketing, something which we have not done so far in detail, I think next week. So that's something we're looking forward to. Beyond that is the question of what are we going to do in 2021. We have been very lucky this year. We got a lot of authors to come and speak, but many people in the group have been reaching out saying, can we make the speaker group a little more diverse now? So we are working on that. We'll have updates around it soon. That's the first update. Second update is there are fantastic people in the group itself, like there's latches out there, right? And Graham, I can see Graham is here today too. There's Steve Audit too. He was in the audience today. There are a lot of phenomenal members out there who are very quiet about their own accomplishments. So we are trying to find out the way to have member sessions where people who have expertise in their own field would like to talk to us about it. That is the second update. Third update is the year is coming to an end. And what's happening with the Behavioral Science Club is we have been able to bring behavioral science into our life in some form or the other, regardless of the fact whether we are practitioners, people who run companies, people with master's degrees, or people who have read exactly zero book. We have been able to bring some sort of change in our life in the form of books. We want to go a little further than that. So the further, what do you mean by a little further, right? It comes in two ways. One is, can we bring in some change in our own lives, right? So when you're talking about changes, you're talking in terms of habits. So number one is, typically we pick up new habits when a year starts, and we know they all fail within 3 to 4 weeks time. So we still have some 47 days for the year to be over. So we are trying to do the other way around, which is you pick up a habit before the year is going to be over. 45 days is a good number of time for us to pick up a new habit. So those 4 books which you wanted to finish, that guitar that you wanted to play, that yoga stretching that you wanted to do, or calling up 10 friends whom you have lost in touch with it, you can pick up whatever your goals, whatever your habits are. And if we are lucky, in a week or 2 or 3, someone who is a habit expert will join us and guide us through this whole process of how do you use behavioral science to create new habits, number A, and number B, stick with those habits, right? So please, just identify your own goals. What is it that you want to pick up? Make it something small, something quite simple, something fun. Feast is a good way to remember it. And I think these are the updates that we have to share with everyone. I hope I covered everything else. Yeah. So we can do a 15-20 minutes breakout chat where we get to know each other. We haven't had that for quite some time. So we'll do that. Louise, before we do the breakout chat, anything else you want to add to it that I might have missed out?
Yeah, I just want to say 2 things. The first is that last week my guilty secret was that I'd never read Thinking Fast and Slow. And I'd set myself a target. And I've been reading 4 or 5 pages every night in bed. And I finished it last night. I'm number 9, Prakash. And so I've got a small bottle of something bubbly in the fridge because I'm celebrating. The second thing is that a lot of the people who've contacted me this week who are in countries where there aren't many, either aren't many other members, or behavioural science is still an emerging subject in their country, then subsequently asked me whether I could put them in touch with other members. Now, obviously, I can't give you their names. That's kind of like, the confidentiality. But I was certainly thinking of maybe making the possibility of, say, subgroups where I could then invite those people to the groups. So if that's something that you're interested in for your particular country, where it's a country where there's a small number of members, then you can message me and we can possibly do that for you to introduce you to other people who are interested in the subject in your country. So that's the end of my messages.
All right, I'm just going to start the breakout rooms. We'll be there for 20 minutes and then we will sign off on.
10 minutes, I think, Prakash.
Fine, 10 minutes works. You should see invitees to join those breakout rooms popping up. Please join and say hi to people whom you don't know and make new friends, guys. All right, I think this is our group. Okay, where am I? Which group am I going out to? Let me see. You will all see invitations to join those breakout rooms. Barbara, Bhanu, Jose, Kevin, Christine, Raj, Shubham, and Denise. You should be seeing those now.